Revelation chapter 8. When John is taken into the heavenly scene, his first impressions are of the throne of God. The glory, the brightness, the awesomeness of it. He observes the worship of God as he sits upon the throne, the cherubim as they declare the holiness of God. He sees the response of the 24 elders. And then his attention is drawn to a scroll that has 7 seals on the scroll. The scroll is the title deed to the earth. The earth that originally belonged to God by divine right of creation. The earth that God gave to man when God placed man upon it. The earth that man forfeited over to Satan when man sinned and obeyed the suggestion of Satan. Today, the earth is under the dominion and the power of darkness. The God of this world, Paul said, has blinded the eyes of those that do not believe so that they cannot see. He hears an angel declare with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to take this scroll and to break the seals?" And no one was found worthy, and John begins to sob. And then the elder said to him, "Don't weep, John, for the Lion of the tribe of Judah hath prevailed to take the scroll and loose the seals." One of the titles of Jesus, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He saw Jesus step forth and take the scroll out of the right hand of him who was sitting upon the throne. He saw the elders as they brought forth their little bowls of incense and offered them before the Lord, which were the prayers of the saints. Your prayers, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. The prayer that I was praying tonight back there, the prayer that I'm praying all the time whenever I read the newspaper or Time magazine or U.S. News and World Report, or I watch the TV news, I say, "Oh, Lord, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth." Things are a mess. Lord, come quickly. How I long to see the kingdom of God upon the earth. How I long to see righteousness, covering the earth. My heart yearns for it. Now, in chapter 6, Jesus began to open the seals, break the seals on the scroll. And we went through the progression of the 6 seals. As he broke them, we saw the corresponding judgments that came upon the earth. As God is judging the earth, preparatory and sort of cleansing the earth through judgment, preparatory to the return of Jesus Christ with the church to establish the reign of God and the kingdom of God upon the earth. So 6 of the seals were opened. And then we got into chapter 7 and we had a little digression as the events were stopped in order to give God the opportunity, or the angels of the Lord, the opportunity to seal the 144,000 in their fords, that they wouldn't be hurt by some of the plagues which were yet to come. And then we were introduced, or we saw this multitude in heaven which came up out of the great tribulation. Now we're back to the seals again. So chapter 7 was a slight digression. Getting back into chapter 8, we move along now with the seals. And the beginning of chapter 8 is the opening of the 7th seal. Now, this doesn't bring an end to the judgments of God. Have you ever seen these skyrockets on the 4th of July where the thing goes off with a big burst and you say, "Oh, beautiful." And then one of the things that comes off of the big burst, as the first flash sort of dies down, this little thing goes spinning off, and then it bursts open. Woo! The second burst out of the thing. And there's a big flash again. Oh, isn't that pretty? And another little spilling thing comes off of that, and then the third one goes out, That's sort of the way the judgments come. The first seven seals, the seven seals. And then from the seventh seal, this little spinning seal coming out, then there comes these seven trumpet judgments. And from the seventh trumpet, the seven vials of wrath that are poured out. So they seem to follow, just as it's about all over, you think, that's it. Then a whole new burst. Only in this case, it's a burst of judgment upon this Christ-rejecting world. So as we get into chapter 8 then, when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of a half an hour. Now, John is estimating the time. And, there probably won't be time references there, so it just is an estimation. But a half hour of silence can be an awesome thing. We just had about 15 seconds of silence, and it seems like a long time when you've got a large group of people and everything is really silent. Here's been all of this activity, all of the songs and the angels singing and this glorious, marvelous events taking place, and then suddenly everything is silent. He opens the seventh seal and silence. And silence can sometimes be quite awesome. We really don't know what the significance of the silence is. It's interesting, when God is silent, man oftentimes speaks. And you can find commentaries that will tell you all kinds of things about the silence. There is, though, the cry of the prophets in the Old Testament for the judgment of God. And as they were saying, God, things are a mess. People are corrupt. They're blaspheming you. Lord, how long will you be silent? And in the Psalms, it says again is, Lord, how long will you be silent? In other words, how long will God be silent and just allow things to go on? As I look at the world today, and as I look at the things that are happening in the world today, as I read about these people that make such blasphemous claims or declare such horrible things, I often wonder, Lord, how long are you going to be silent? God, why don't you slap their mouths? Lord, why don't you do them in? Why don't you send a bolt of lightning and just teach them a lesson? Lord, how long will you be silent? How long are you going to take this stuff, God? How long before you respond and react? The time has come. God is getting ready to respond and to react in judgment upon the earth. And so the silence may in reality mark the end of the silence of God in his forthcoming judgment upon the earth. Now I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and they were given seven trumpets. Now we know that there are the cherubim, the four cherubim, which are also a category of angels that surround the throne of God. There are also seven angels that stand before God in heaven. The Bible names two of them. One of them is Gabriel. When Gabriel came to Zacharias the father of John the Baptist, as he was ministering in the temple, he said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, you have found favor with God. Your wife, and your prayers heard. Your wife Elizabeth is going to bear a son, call his name John. He said, How can I know this? He said, I am Gabriel, and I stand in the presence of God. So Gabriel is one of these angels that stands in the presence of God. And so Gabriel is one of these angels that will be given a trumpet to sound, which will be pronouncing a judgment that is coming upon the earth. Another angel, called in the scriptures the great prince, is Michael. They are called archangels, which means first. Arch is first. So the first angels of the first degree or authority or power. In a apocryphal book called Enoch, Enoch names 4 other of the angels. The apocryphal book of Tobit gives the one that Enoch also gives, which is Raphael, the angel of light. The Sacriel, Uriel, and Raguel are the names given in the apocryphal book of Enoch for 4 of the other angels. One remains unnamed. But there are 7 angels of top priority, you might say, who stand before the throne of God. These 7 angels are given trumpets. As they, one by one, give forth their blast on their trumpets, there is a corresponding judgment of God that takes place upon the earth. Now, outside of these 7 angels, John said, I saw another angel. Verse 3. And he came out and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all of the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. Now, some people think that the study of the tabernacle is boring. You know, it deal with the outer court of the tabernacle where they offered the sacrifices, and the brass altar out there, and then the brass bowl in which the priest would bathe and wash his feet before he would enter into the sanctuary. And within the sanctuary on the right-hand side, this little golden table with 12 loaves of bread. On the left-hand side, the 7 golden candlesticks. And in the center, before this big curtain, was this altar of incense, a golden-covered altar, in which the priest would daily come in and offer incense before this golden altar. Inside of the Holy of Holies was the Shekinah of God, or the dwelling place where God met man. And inside of the Holy of Holies, only the high priest could go, and only one day in the year, and only after many sacrifices. And in this Holy of Holies, there was the Ark of the Covenant, a little golden box. And in this golden box, there was the rod of Aaron that budded to show that he was the chosen priesthood by God. There was a jar of manna that God gave to the children of Israel in the wilderness, and then there were the 2 tables of stone upon which God inscribed the law. This golden box was covered with a lid, which was called the mercy seat, and on that there were carved 2 cherubim, whose wings touched each other's at the top, and it was where, the worship of the Old Testament period of time was centered, and where man came to meet God. Now, it becomes very significant to us when you read the book of Hebrews. Because the book of Hebrews tells us that this tabernacle in the wilderness was nothing less than a model of heaven. So that when Moses made the thing, God said, now you be sure to make it just exactly like I told you, the dimensions that I gave to you. Because these are all a shadow of heavenly things, or these are a likeness of things that are in heaven. This is a little model of heaven here on earth. So you get an idea, you wonder what will the throne of God be like, what will heaven look like, and so forth. This is a model of the heavenly things. And thus it becomes quite significant to us. That means that in heaven, there is this brass altar that has glowing coals upon it. Here in the 3rd verse, this other angel came and stood at the altar. He had a golden censer, which was a little golden cup that was usually with the golden chain, and the priest would hold the chain. And what he would do is he would put incense in this little golden cup. Incense that was made by they called it the apothecary, by the chemist, according to a special formula that God gave to them in the law, and it was not to be made by man for use by man. It was to be used exclusively for God, a special compound of the incense that was to be used completely for God, and anybody who would make it for himself was to be put to death. Now the priest would fill this little golden bowl with the incense, and then he would take one of the coals from the altar where they offered the burnt sacrifices. And he would take this live coal, which live coal means burning coal, well, the thing was red hot, and he would put it in this little bowl of incense. And that live or red hot coal hitting the incense, of course, the smell and the smoke would go on up, this aroma. And he would then enter into what was called the sanctuary, and before this little golden altar of incense, he would swing this incense. And as the incense would fill the room, the smoke would ascend and the incense would fill the room, the incense became a symbol of the prayers of the people, which to God comes to him as a sweet aroma. God looks upon your prayers as just a sweet-smelling aroma. The prayers of God's saints ascending come before God as a sweet aroma. And so this was a figure, it was a symbol of the prayers of God's people as they ascend to God. As each day he would go in, actually in the morning prayer and in the evening prayer, he would go in with this incense in this little routine. Now that's what Zechariah was doing. And of course, we're at the Christmas season, so it's a good time to review that. That's what Zechariah was doing in Luke chapter 1. He was a priest, and it was his turn to offer the incense. And so as he was offering this incense before the altar in the temple, the angel Gabriel stood there on the right side, and he sort of freaked out when he saw this angel in there, because only the priest was supposed to be in there. And the angel said, "Fear not, Zacharias. Your prayer is heard. You found favor with God." Now, Zacharias, we know, was an old man. His wife was elderly. It's interesting, they were still praying for a baby. He said, "Your prayer is heard." Man, they were probably in their 60s, 70s. They're still praying for a kid. "Fear not, your prayer is heard. Your wife Elizabeth, even in her old age, is going to conceive and bear a son, call his name John. And he is going to be the forerunner of the Messiah. He shall go before the Lord to prepare his ways," and so forth, and turn the hearts of the children of the fathers. And so he was doing this altar of incense when he was there. Now, in heaven, there is this altar with the burning coals, because the earthly is a model of the heavenly. In Isaiah chapter 6, he writes, in the year that King Uzziah died. Now, Uzziah was a very popular king. He was a President Reagan of the day. He had initiated a lot of good reforms. When Uzziah came to the throne, the nation was in a mess. Runaway inflation, high interest rates, the economy was in shambles. Things were really in a mess. Uzziah got everything in order. He reigned for a long period of time, and the name, he was a popular king. The name Uzziah was on the lips of all the people. They had confidence in him. Well, Uzziah will take care of it, you know. And his name spread abroad throughout the world. His name was on the lips of all the people. Everybody talking about Uzziah, just a good, popular king. When he died, it created panic. There was no real successor, no real leader to take his place. And the people were so under panic. What are we going to do? The throne is empty. Uzziah is dead. The throne is empty. And Isaiah said, in the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up, sitting on the throne. The throne isn't empty, Isaiah. God's sitting on the throne. You know, it's interesting that sometimes God has to get our idols out of our way before we can see him. Uzziah was an idol. Isaiah didn't see the Lord until God removed the idol Uzziah. In the year he died, I saw the Lord, high and lifted up, sitting on his throne. His train did fill the temple. Now, Isaiah's response or reaction to that, he saw the Lord. Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, and I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell amongst people of unclean lips. His seeing God allowed him to see himself. And that is one shocking experience. If you see yourself in the light of people around you, not too bad, man. I'm, sort of average. I'm not the worst here tonight. I can look around and see some that are worse than I am. And so, probably not the best either, but, look around and I don't feel too bad. Man, you look at God, and you see God and see his righteousness and his holiness, and then you see yourself in the light of God and in relationship to God, and man, you're dead. I mean, you've had it. Woe is me. Man, I'm dead. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell amongst a people of unclean lips. And Isaiah said, then there came a seraphim, which is another type of angelic being, and he took one of the coals off of the altar. This is the same altar we're reading about here in chapter 8. He took one of the coals from this altar in heaven, and he flew unto me, and he touched my lips with this burning coal, and he said, behold, you are clean. That is that purging fire of God in our lives. The Bible says our God is a consuming fire. Fire has the unique capacity of purifying. You put gold in a fire. Heat that gold. What happens is that the dross is consumed and the gold is purified by the heat of the fire. This was the purifying fire from the altar of God, touching the lips of Isaiah in the declaration, you are clean. However, in Revelation, it's a different story. The angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar, and he cast it into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. The same fire that purifies can also destroy. That's the interesting characteristic of fire. Fire can purify, or fire can also destroy. You put a piece of wood in that fire, and that piece of wood is destroyed. And yet that same fire will purify. The fire of God can purify your life or destroy your life. Here in Revelation, we see its destructive powers. When this angel casts the fire to the earth, we see that it is accompanied with the lightnings, with the thunders, and with the earthquake. We see the destructive force of the fire of God. That same fire that brought cleansing to Isaiah is the same fire that will destroy the earth. It all depends on what you're made of. You see, you can't really escape God. Our God is fire. You can't escape it. There is a word, aromacasis, a scientific word which is a reference to what they call the slow-burning fire of nature. It's everywhere. It's called also the second law of thermodynamics. There is a slow fire burning in nature which is gradually destroying everything. This building is in a process of decay. The slow burning fire of nature. Put a piece of steel out there in the grass, and within a week, you'll see little brown spots. What's happening? Aromacasis. The slow burning fire of nature is beginning to destroy it. It's universal. You can't escape it. You're in the fire. You're in the presence of God. You can't escape that. God is everywhere. You're in the presence of God. And the very characteristic of God is either transmitting you into permanency or it's destroying you. It's either purifying or destroying. It all depends on what you're made of. Fire will forge iron into steel. Put a little carbon with the iron and heat it up in the fire, and you forge it. You make it hard. You make it more permanent. All depends on what's in the fire. You're in the fire. What's it doing to you? All depends on what you are. In this case, the fire has a destructive aspect to it. As he takes these coals from the altar, throws them to the earth, he hears the thunders, the lightnings, and the earthquake. And at this point, the 7 angels, which had the 7 trumpets, prepare to sound. Would you believe our time is already gone? Okay, we'll get the trumpets next week. But this one thing I wanted to share with you, I can't wait. We'll tie it together again next week, but just one of those things. I was reading tonight in conjunction with these events that are going to take place in the 8th trumpet, or in the 8th chapter, as we deal with the first 4 trumpets. I was cross-referencing into Luke's Gospel, chapter 21. Where Jesus is speaking of the great tribulation that's coming upon the earth. And because in these trumpet judgments we're going to see the earth burned, we're going to see a great comet or something hit the seas and all the effects of that. Jesus said in verse 25, Luke 21, there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. In the Greek, that word perplexity means no way out. In other words, the nations are going to be perplexed, or they're going to rather have distress, but there's no way out. There will be economic problems, no way out. There will be international problems, no way out. The sea and the waves roaring. We'll get that when we see the tidal waves that will be created in the second trumpet. Men's hearts failing them for fear as they are looking at those things that are coming upon the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And they shall see the Son of Man coming with the cloud and with power and great glory. Now, the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. That's what got me tonight when I got into my Greek. The word power there is the word dunamis, from which we get our word dynamite. But the word heaven there is the Greek word Uranus, from which we get our word uranium. Our word uranium comes from this Greek word translated heaven. The dynamite, or the dunamis, of the uranium shall be shaken, and the word shaken in the Greek is put out of balance. Now, a literal translation of that would be the dunamis, the dynamics of the uranium, will be put out of balance. Do you know what causes an atomic explosion? They bombard the nucleus of the uranium atom with slow-moving neutrons, disturbing the balance, the molecular balance. And as they disturb the molecular balance of the neutron of the uranium, it's what causes the atom to split and the reaction which creates your atomic explosion. The powers of the heavens shall be shaken, or more literally, the dunamis, the dynamics of the uranium will be knocked out of balance. Now, what do you suppose Jesus knew about atomic energy? A lot more than we do. A lot more than we do. And I'm sure that he just put that little thing in there, figuring by 1986 they'll figure that one out. After they've messed around with uranium and bombarded the nucleus and put it out of balance and created the dynamics or the power out of the thing, then one day someone will take a look at that and say, wow, look at that. I think that, that just to me is one of those interesting little tidbits that are there in the Scripture. The Scripture is full of them, where God just sort of puts his thumbprint on, so that you know that he left his thumbprint, so you say, who wrote this? Look at the thumbprint. Wow, it's God's, He wrote the thing. And he left his thumbprints through the whole thing, and interesting little things like this. God, in time to come, people will read it and they say, wow, God's thumbprint. But we'll look at that next week. As we get into these trumpet judgments, quite exciting as we look at it in light of what we know and what the scientists are talking about today. Do you know that one of the greatest fears that the scientists have today is the Earth being impacted by a comet or a large asteroid? Do you know that we have a watch on, because there's this asteroid belt out here in our solar system, and that we have a watch on for comets and, of course, asteroids or whatever that might be on a collision course with the world. And you know that they have plans, if they discover one on a collision course with the world, to actually set rockets out there and to try to deter their trajectory so it wouldn't hit the earth, because they realize the tremendous devastation that would take place if there were just an asteroid of, say, 5 miles diameter that would hit the earth. The effects of it would be worldwide and be so catastrophic that it could make the world uninhabitable for man. And if you get into some of the research of science and some of the astrophysics and so forth, and some of the concerns that they have as we pass through the asteroid belts and so forth in our solar system, and it's one of the things that is a real concern to the scientists, and they're trying to make contingency plans for such a thing, and they don't know whether or not they should try to blow the thing up, with a nuclear device, or whether or not they should just try and steer the thing away from a collision course with the earth. But it's something that's under deep investigation and serious consideration. Now, as we get into the trumpets, we're going to see that they miss on one or two. And they're going to strike the earth, and we're going to read the devastating effects as these asteroids or meteorites or whatever they may be impact the earth. It is thought that one impacted the earth in 1906 up in the area of Siberia, where hundreds of miles of heavy timber forests were laid over just like toothpicks. In fact, the devastation was so tremendous. 1906, that's not too long ago. The devastation was so tremendous that some of the physicists are suggesting that it was a meteorite of what they call antimatter. Now, matter as we know it, material as we know it, is made up of atoms that have the proton at the nucleus and the electron revolving around it. Antimatter would be an atom with the electron at the nucleus with the proton revolving around it. We don't know that antimatter exists. It's only a thing on the drawing board right now. It's only a thing in the theoretics. But it is theoretically possible that you could have antimatter, which would be molecules that are made up just of the opposite characteristics of the molecules that we know. But they say that if antimatter exists, that if antimatter would come together with matter, you would have an explosion that, could shake the universe. And there is a suggestion that what happened in 1906, some of the physicists are postulating that it was just a small little particle the size of a piece of gravel, a meteorite the size of a gravel, but of antimatter that wiped out hundreds of square miles of heavy timbered forest. Explosion so loud that it was heard thousands of miles away. But next week we'll take a look at these stars that happen when the first 4 of the trumpets are blown. Lord bless you. Keep His hand upon your life, and may you live your life for Jesus. That's the only way. No other way to go. God bless you.